Hello, y'all. Love you. So, I'm going to try and make this a little bit shorter today, but we'll see as far as closer to that 15-minute range, maybe. But we'll see. And I probably won't get too deep into anything, but I think it's worth bringing up. I've been thinking about it lately. So, nothing has happened particular between us and that. Oh, we need to talk about this and all that kind of stuff. It's not like that. It's been on my radar for a long time. So, this is the day, I feel like. So basically, what I wanted to take a quick minute to talk about today is along those lines of authority and respect, our elders, taking information, eating watermelon but spitting out the seeds, taking in information, and then recognizing what's being said, the spirit behind what's being said, not necessarily the details of some things sometimes. So, I think it's worth it. We don't have enough time to really flesh out. We don't have enough time to really flesh out the really getting at the pointing out and highlighting the value behind authority and respect. But I think it's worth bringing up for mention here and talking about for a quick second. Authority is good. I know it feels like a consensus and an attitude in the population in general nowadays, and it's always been like that. I think it's been like that when I was a kid. This thing of being afraid of, for this example particular, is being afraid of policemen and that stuff because those are authority figures. And it's not just a policeman. That's not what I'm talking about. That's not the point. I'm talking about people in your life in all different areas that have authority. And that doesn't mean they have authority in every area of your life, but it does mean that they may have some authority in a particular area of your life. If it's your teacher, then that means in the classroom. If it's your job, that means the boss. If it's, just whatever. It breaks down. It don't mean everything in general, but it does break down. If it's at home and you're talking about your mom. So, authority is valuable. Now, there is a such thing as bad authority and good authority. So, I'm talking about the good authority. Being under bad authority is not a good thing. There's still an area that you have to respect that, but be very cautious when it comes to those kinds of things because it might be a situation that you just need to withdraw yourself from altogether, as opposed to bucking the authority and trying to come against his authority. Because the truth is, in any area, if somebody is an authority, you need to respect that authority. If that's not an area that you want to be in personally, then you remove yourself from it. But it's not necessarily the best thing to just always come against that and fight that just for the sake of fighting it. So that's the point I want to drive there with the authority thing, is recognizing authority, appreciating good authority, and you can ride under good authority, that's fine. Give them their due. But when it comes to bad authority, you need to assess that situation, find out what's going on, and if it is a bad situation, remove yourself from it. Don't go about trying to fix it necessarily. Like I said, we ain't gonna get too deep into it. It's just a basic concept at this point. So, authority is valuable. Good authority is great. It brings a tremendous amount of strength to any situation. It's something that you can rely on, and it makes your operating in that situation easier. So lean on good authority, but on bad authority, assess it. And if it shows up, remove yourself from it. After that, I would say we need to recognize respect, and this is a really pretty deep conversation, and it takes some life experience to see what that means, and then to assess it. And it ain't just respecting somebody because they're gonna beat you up. So I respect, that's not what I'm talking about, really. It's just, and then there's a common saying that respect is not given, it's earned. And I know what you mean. I know what that means. And that's true. That is true. But there is always a base level of respect that should be given, that is due. You know, in general, when you're running out, when you're walking around outside in the general population, in the general public, you know, if you're at the grocery store, there is a common respect that you have in dealing with and operating with people. You know, there's courtesy, and then there's a respect, and it's good to recognize those things too. And giving respect does not make you weak. It does not say you're some kind of doormat and these kinds of things. It's honestly, it is recognize, to me, if you ask me, it is recognizing that God has put value in some things to create them. People are here for a reason. He created them. So then there's a certain amount of value that I assess to because he does. So then therefore there's a certain amount of base layer of respect that I feel that those people are due as a human being. And then those things do grow in things as far as relationships grow with people. And like that saying goes, respect is not given, it's earned. That is true, but it's not an absolute. It deals more with the relationship and not just a being. So, but respect is also valuable. It is valuable. It's, you know, to be honest, I think the value in it is really, it builds you more than it builds anything around you in those relationships, because through all that, it puts a value onto things. And the more you grow and live and learn, you're going to be able to assess values to things differently. When I'm talking about values in this context, I'm talking about values in our relationships with people, value in the people, in the person itself, and value in the richness of life because of those relationships. I hope that ain't too much but I think it's enough that you can understand it, you know. Something else. Here, I'll give you another example of an idea of respect. This, you know, some kids might cuss their parents out, and they might even cuss around their parents. And different parents are different. They allow for different things. I'm not going there. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about as a basic respect for your parents just because they're your parents, regardless of if you feel that they do right by you or they do wrong by you and all these kinds of things. There's a base level that you should never lower yourself to disrespect those people in that capacity. Like I said, because that's really what it is. It doesn't hurt them. It hurts you. It lowers you, you know. So think about that. Think about that and what I mean when I talk about respect and respecting people. And no means am I talking about being any kind of a doormat or putting people high up on some kind of pedestal or these kinds of things or giving them anything more than they're due. But there is a basic level to this life that we're living and the creation that we're living in, and it is due some respect. It is due some respect. So think about those things. And of course, we can talk about it more as time goes on and we can get deeper into the subject. But it's a big deal. It's worth it. It's worth it. Something that we commonly, when I was growing up, that it seems that we don't hear too much of, but you guys knew a little bit about it when we was doing the karate classes and that kind of stuff, was the yes sir and no sir. It was more so when I was a kid that parent, and even though I didn't, you know, my mom, she didn't make me do that, but I had friends and stuff, and in their families they had to. But it used to be a very common thing that when you was kids, you addressed your mom, your dad, the adults around you, You address them as sir and ma'am. Yes, sir. No, sir. When they ask you a question, you respond. And you, yes, sir. No, sir. You know, there was a respect there. And there's just a certain value to that and what that produced in generations that, you know, it does seem like it gets lost to the wayside, but I feel like it is coming back. So you do yourself some good to pay some attention to that. Something else that we used to say that I really don't hear too much lately, but I think is still tremendously valuable. They used to say, respect your elders. And what they were saying is, you know, because the old elders means old people, right? You know that. Respect the old people around you, the old people. And what that means is, you know, they're going to be telling you things. They're going to be telling you things. And it's telling you, respect what they're saying. Listen to them. It doesn't mean that you just take it as a given and yes, ABC is you agree with it totally and you're going to do it all. Yes, ABC right down the line. That's not what it means. It means respect your elders because they've lived long enough they got some life lessons in there that you don't know yet because you're young. And you'll be a fool not to give it any kind of heed, you know. So respect your elders. That doesn't mean, like I said, that everything they say is absolute, but to tell the truth, at the core of what is being said, what they're telling you, there's real truth, real wisdom there. And so you'd be shooting yourself in the foot to not pay some attention to what they're saying and giving that the respect that it's due. You know, that's what I mean. You know, there is some common ways of operating with the people around us and keeping these relationships in context. It's the same with your friends. You're going to have different levels of friendships in different places in that relationship. I don't mean physically like in the world, but places in that relationship emotionally and in dealing with the relationship. Some places where you can go more than others with other friends, you know. And there's value to that. And it's the same with these kind of relationships. Relationships with people in authority, relationships for this example, like I'm talking about with elders and considering those kinds of things. Relationship and respect and how you carry yourself in general public. These things are valuable. And you do yourself justice to give some weight to those things. There's a saying that goes that we need to be able to eat the watermelon, but you still spit out the seeds. It talks about anybody. You should be able to eat watermelon, but spit out the seeds. You eat the watermelon. You don't want to miss out on the watermelon. But you spit out the seeds. You don't got to eat the seeds. There's another saying that says eat the fish, but spit out the bones, right? But that's what it's getting at. It's talking about, I see it as the same thing consistent through all this, concerning those elders and in the relationships and dealing with the people around us, you know. There's always going to be particulars, and those particulars have to be dealt with in a certain way. But you should be able to hear what somebody is saying and take what is being said at the heart of it. Not always does it necessarily have to be to the T in the details of what they're saying. I'm not talking about when we're talking about, you know, doing a particular task, a physical task. There's no thinking in that. You just do the task. If somebody's telling you, wash my car, and I want you to wash the outside, then vacuum the inside, then wipe out the inside, then it needs to be done like that. That's not the kind of work that I'm talking about. I'm talking about those other things, these relationship things. So that's what I mean. We need to be able to. I call it hear this. You need to be able to hear the spirit behind what's being said. Now I don't mean that spirit as in a ghost, stuff like that. And at the same time, I'm not saying just the intention behind what they're saying. It's deeper than the intention, but it's not like a ghost necessarily. It's the core, the heart behind what they're saying, what's being put out there. And you need to be able to hear that and not get bogged down in the details, right? You need to be able to hear that and not get bogged down in the details. I'll give you a good example and we'll leave it at that. Well, anyway, there's a real popular, we're over 15 minutes, so I'll make it real quick. There's a real popular example, or there's a real popular verse in the Bible that goes, a rich man will never enter it'd be easier for a rich man to, how's it go? It's easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than it is for a rich man to get into heaven. That's the verse. That's what most commonly people know it as. It is easier for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to get into heaven. Now, it's been millennia since that was written, and there has been revelation come about as far as translation in some of those words. And that word camel, even though King James, when he translated, he did translate it as camel, but it's come to there's been revelation since then, and actually what that means is a rope that they used to make out of camel hair. So, that's what I mean. It doesn't change the spirit behind what's being said, but the details are there. And the details wasn't that they wasn't saying a camel, they was actually saying a rope. But people get caught up on the details and they say, oh no, it means a camel, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't matter, because that missed the whole point. And the same thing about as far as on the rich man side of it. Being rich or poor ain't got nothing to do with it. It's talking about a richness on the inside. Or it's not, it's talking about the extent to that person holds on to physical things in this earth realm, as opposed to hearing some other realm stuff. But anyway, so I hope I didn't babble on too much there. Eat the watermelon but spit out the seeds, you know what I mean? Respect your elders and pay respect. You're not no doormat. I'm not saying that by any means, not even close. But these things are valuable, so give it some thought. Love you guys. Talk to you later.